I remember being really little and like almost in tears about like the victories, like so pumped up about people succeeding and winning in life. And looking back, that's always been there. That's just the way I was wired, right? God made me that way. So that just didn't sit right. It just felt like, how are we getting ahead by someone else being pushed to the side and stepped over and stepped on? Like it just didn't feel right. It just felt off. I do have a vision for the future is just to continue serving people well. Really what it comes down to, and creating relationships that people feel like family, and and what does family do? At least good family. They're going to refer you back to more people. Yeah. So just creating relationships after the transaction is done to where it's like, hey, I need help with X, Y, and Z. It has nothing to do with real estate. I'm going to call Rene because he's going to be willing to do that.
We want to personally be able to provide value for our past customers once the deal closes, right? Rather than just wiping your forehead and saying, thank God that one's done, and move on to the next, right? Hey friends, how's it going? Welcome to More Than a Mortgage. This podcast, the entire purpose of it is we want to provide value, right? So as a loan officer in the mortgage space, I'm a mortgage broker. We're looking to provide value before, during, and far long after the transaction closes, right? And what we don't want to do is just remind you that we're in the business. We want to connect you to amazing people. So the entire point of this podcast, whether it ever gets an audience or not, is to highlight awesome stories from fantastic people, kind of just folks that we think are worth knowing. And our goal is to introduce them to our past clients. And then hopefully the content is honoring enough for them that they're excited to go share it and help grow their own sphere and help their sphere and their clients get to know them better as well. So super excited to be doing this. It's one of our favorite things we get to do. You know, I kind of just picture myself in a coffee shop, and rather than drinking coffee or having lunch with somebody, it's just we're doing that here in the studio. So the whole point of this is to provide value, and that's our goal. And if you guys don't know who I am, my name's Gavin Sessions. I am the host of the podcast More Than a Mortgage. I'm a mortgage broker, been doing it for about 7 years, and just again, really excited to be in the studio here today with my guest, Rene Cornejo, awesome real estate agent, and looking forward to having you share some of your story today with our audience. And shoot, man, I don't know you all that well either, so I'm really excited to get to know each other a little bit better. So
yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I've always loved the idea of podcasts because I feel like the podcast host is a wealth of knowledge. By the couple years in, you get the opportunity to just pick brains and ask all the questions. It's super awesome. So cool. Stoked for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I just think of this as a great alternative to, hey, let's sit down and have lunch, or let's sit down and have coffee. I'd love to get to know you. You know, the classic, hey, I want to get to know you because maybe accidentally we might do business together. That's kind of the behind the scenes goal here. But I'm not looking to just put any warm body in that seat. This is all about the right kind of people and call it, as Coach Peterson used to say with Boise State, our kind of guys, right? Or our kind of gals. Yeah. So we're looking for the right kind of people to be able to highlight, and you certainly fit that mold, and I'm excited to hear a little bit more of your story. So we don't want to be too open-ended here, because when I've done this a couple times before, we can get 90 minutes worth of content.
Yeah. So you don't want me to start from like age 2.
I mean, you can.
When I started walking, like not.
You can. It just makes it a little more difficult for the editor to cut it down. So I think if we can be concise and try to keep this to, 45, 50 minutes, that's probably going to be ideal. So
I'm not much of a rambler, so
I love it.
We'll get to the nitty gritty.
And in a perfect world, they're going to hear a lot more from you than they do from me. So that's our goal.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, kick us off. Would love to hear just a little bit of your story, how you ended up here in Boise, Idaho.
Yes.
How you ended up in the real estate space.
Yep.
So let's go.
So I was born in East LA. Grew up in the San Fernando Valley though. Okay. Chatsworth, California.
Got it.
Reseda, particularly. I did graphic design as a career for over 15 years. Marketing graphics is kind of the space I was in for a long time. But then I got sucked in by watching Bigger Pockets or listening to Bigger Pockets, if you're familiar.
Yes.
Yeah. So I kind of opened my brain to real estate. That and was the book that everybody reads. You probably read it. It's
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yep. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah.
So that kind of was like, whoa, like real estate, like I can get into this. And then I had a buddy who was actually on Bigger Pockets podcast that I went to junior high and high school with. So I was like,
so he was a guest on it?
Yeah, he was a guest on it.
Oh, that's
At the
right.
time he was living in Hawaii. This is right before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And he's like, so I reached out to him like, dude, you're flipping homes. Like, I've been wanting to get into this. I've been listening for about a year and reading and trying to figure out the space. And he's like, dude, come, let's do it. So partnered with him as like on the lending side of stuff. I did like a private lending with him.
Okay.
And that was kind of like my in, right? And like getting the big picture of what that looked like. But that was on the investment side of stuff. And I was doing like acquisitions, cold calling, door knocking. And I learned quickly that in that space, there's a lot of people getting taken advantage of when it comes to, they're losing their home. They're in tough spots.
Yeah.
So a lot of these investors will come in and say, hey, here's the fix.
Yeah.
But the fix is typically like it's not a great deal.
Right.
Typically, right?
Well, yeah, they're typically desperate, right?
Yeah.
So they're facing foreclosure or.
Yeah. So, a lot of the investors were taking advantage, and it didn't sit right with me. I'm like, well, there's win-win situations that can be set up in some of these situations, right? Sometimes it's, look, this is all we can do, and you're not really in a position to win, right? The person in a bad spot.
Right.
So there's always that. But there was times where it's like, look, you're probably better off talking to an agent and listing your home, because you can still do that. There's still time. And there was people that would kind of give me like, dude, don't tell them that. Like, offer them this and we could get going. I'm like, it just doesn't feel right. Right. So stuff like that kept happening. And I'm like, man, well, I'm not licensed. At that point, I wasn't licensed. And in California, we don't need to be for the most part as an investor, because we have access to Zillow and we can see comps.
Disclosure state, right?
Yes. Disclosure state. So, it was fairly easy to learn how to comp homes on Zillow and stuff like that. So we did that. But then we felt, kind of shifting gears here. I have a brother-in-law who lived in Iowa.
Not Idaho.
Iowa. It's like Ohio. My family's always like, how's Ohio? It's great. It's Idaho. Yeah. Well, how's Iowa? It's always a mix up.
Even better.
Yeah. Yeah. Go there. That's what the locals say. Go there. Don't come here. Exactly. I heard Idaho's. No, never mind. I won't go there.
Do it. Just go there.
So he was in Iowa, and now I had to think about it too. I'm like, Idaho. And I felt like God was kind of saying, hey, dude, like, get close to this guy. And he was way over there. And I'm like, okay, what does that look like?
This is your brother-in-law.
Brother-in-law, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm like, what does that look like? I'm in California. And one, I guess I'm putting this out in the world. I didn't have the best relationship with him. But he was far away, so it didn't really matter.
Yeah.
But there was like a growing thing where it was like, hey, I felt like I should have a relationship with this guy.
Yeah. So
I was like, cool, I'll call him. Maybe I'll just start talking to him on the phone. Like, that's
nice.
what it is. But a year went on, and it was like, no, I just felt this need that it needed to be more than just a phone call. So I shared it with my wife, and before I could even finish, she's like in tears. She's like, I felt like God was saying that we should be closer to him, but I didn't want to say anything because, one, I know you don't want to leave our situation here in California to go to Iowa. Like, what are you going to do out there?
Yeah.
And he lived in Sioux City. It's a super small
Was this
town.
her brother, your wife's brother?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was in Sioux City. There's nothing there. They got like a Hard Rock Cafe. It's all flat. I love mountain biking. I love hiking. Like, flat wasn't going to do it. Below 20 below zero wasn't going to do it.
Yeah.
Hot and muggy and bugs and just wasn't going to do it for me.
Yeah.
So I had already visited Idaho, and I had family out here. Denise was out here. So I came to visit her, and I loved it. So I came out here, and within a month I bought a rental because I was like, I love the market. I love what it is. I don't know if I'll ever live out there, but I want to own property. Like, I like it. So I did that. So in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, well, maybe if he's willing to move to Idaho, we can meet there.
Yeah.
And he's a surgical tech, so he can really live anywhere.
Okay.
But long story short, he wasn't really wanting to do that. He was like, look, I got a great job. I don't want to leave. And where I'm at, like, it's pretty stable. I'm like, all right. So I packed up my house in California, moved in with my mother-in-law in preparation to move to Iowa. And in that process, he's like, hey, what's up with Idaho? Why do you like it so much? Why have you mentioned it, so many times? I'm like, look, how about you go visit? And that's like the drug dealer way of saying, I'm going to sell you Idaho, because we don't really have to sell it.
No,
it kind of sells
itself. Set really quick.
Kind of sells itself. I just had my sister in town, and she was like, I don't know. Why would I want to go visit Idaho? I'm like, just come visit. She was here 2 days and she's like, I kind of want to move. I'm like, I know. That's how it happens. That's how it happens. So anyhow, he came to visit and got a great offer from a hospital out here. And he made the move. So he came out here. And so we're like, cool. I kind of get both. I get a little bit of both. Like, I feel like God was like, I know your heart's desire, right? You want to be in Idaho.
Yeah.
And I see your heart's desire to be obedient, to be close to your brother-in-law. So I kind of want to bless that. So I was
That's
like,
awesome.
Cool.
What year did this kind of all
This
go
was
down?
2 years ago. So this is post-pandemic. Yeah, just a couple years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So
nice.
Yeah. So that was kind of.
So you made the decision to move here in your heart and mind. When do you think that happened?
About 2019. I think it was like 2020.
Okay.
Right after pandemic, we came to visit. And that was like where I want to be here. But in 2022 is when we were finally like, hey, we're gonna make the move.
Nice. And when did God put it on your heart to pursue your brother-in-law?
Right around that 2019.
Oh, so same
same time. So it was kind of like all happening around the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they got here when?
In the end of 2022.
So same year as you guys.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. They got here like a month before us.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, dude. So
very, very cool.
So yeah, that was kind of the transition over here, and we love it. We love it. My kids are thriving. All they want to do is fish.
That's great.
Ride motorcycles. And
tell me about your kids.
Got a 7-year-old.
Okay.
Yeah. Got a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old daughter, and a 2-year-old son.
So 7-year-old's a boy?
Yep.
Boy, girl, boy?
Boy, girl, boy.
We've got boy, girl, boy. That's a good pattern.
Yeah.
7, 5, and 2.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And our first one was a good kid, so we got suckered in. We're like, oh yeah, this is great. We're going to have another one. And they're in the fun stage. And by fun, I mean crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Is your youngest sleeping through the night? And
yeah, he's still a breastfeeder. So he's up a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
He's really attached to mom.
Very hands-on still.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's fun.
Life moves so fast.
So quick.
Dude, it's crazy. We moved here this isn't my story, but I guess I'm telling you my story, but this is supposed to be about you. Yeah. We moved here in January of 17. We visited the summer of 16, and my parents had moved here back in 2007. So we've, from a distance, respectfully mocked them for 8+ years. Like, Idaho. We came from Western Washington. Idaho felt like forever away, as one state away.
Oh, yeah.
I'd only been to Idaho once in my life and never to the southern part of the state. But we visited with an open mind and an open heart in the summer of 16. And it was 24 hours maybe before the hooks kind of got in. And we're like, are you thinking what I'm thinking? And we're looking at Zillow on real estate. We're just like, we didn't want to leave. By the end of the week, we're like, how do we just not even go back to the Seattle area?
Yeah.
Can we just remotely sell everything and, all the things? So we'd made the decision real quickly that we wanted to be here, and we were here by January of 17.
That's awesome.
And my youngest at the time was 1. So it's probably pretty similar too.
That's exactly right. It's about the same timeline. Yeah.
And now my youngest is 10.
Yeah. So he's the real Idahoan.
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, he doesn't remember living in Washington.
Yeah.
So I've got a 10-year-old son, 12-year-old daughter, and 14-year-old son. And I kid you not, everybody says it. It just has gone so stinking fast. I've got my son, and my oldest is starting high school next year.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Very crazy. So
how's the mess and the chaos in the house? Is it still the same? Different?
They're bigger and they have more things at this point. Yeah. And so I'm not a great clutter guy. Like it's a struggle for sure. Like
I'm a neat, like things have to be in their place. So it drives me nuts seeing toys. I'm like, my wife's like, you're going to miss it. I'm like, I will miss them being little. I won't miss the mess of the little. I'm like, please, let's keep this clean.
My man, you're like identical.
Yeah.
So I remember when I had little kids and it was fun to see their crap around, right? Like, oh, look at Avery's shoes, evidence of a daughter. That's so cute.
Yeah, it's cute when it's a princess shoe or something.
It's not cute anymore.
It's not when it's a muddy boot that just came out. You're like, a muck boot needs to be outside.
Pick your junk up.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, man.
It's awesome.
Good stuff. Okay, so been here since 2022 and came here after buying an investment property here, and you're a Bigger Pockets fan and maybe a Bigger Pockets disciple is the right way to think about it. You said something, I want to put you on the spot a little bit, just because if we're not organic and just asking, follow-up questions, and this is probably less fun to listen to, but You said there was something that didn't feel right when you had an opportunity to potentially take advantage of somebody.
Yeah.
What's that come from?
Well, obviously my faith for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think just the core conviction of the Spirit living in me.
Yeah.
God in me, and him just like, this is what it is. But I think at the end of the day, just being a champion for the people. I think since I was really little, I've always had this sense of like, you just watch those stories of like the underdogs or like the kids playing like little giants, like the victory. I remember being really little and like almost in tears about like the victories, like so pumped up about people succeeding and winning in life. And looking back, that's always been there. So that's just the way I was wired, right? God made me that way. So I think that the way God made me, and then now as a child of God and a follower, like that just didn't sit right. It just felt like, how are we getting ahead by someone else being pushed to the side and stepped over and stepped on? Like it just didn't feel right. It just felt off. So I was always like, how can we make the best of a situation so that it's like, we need to get ahead. At the end of the day, we're in a business. We do this for a living.
For profit.
That's what we do. It's for profit.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it for charity. But there's still ways to make it profitable for everybody, in some scenarios. So I think just not having that as an option in some cases because of the people we are surrounded by in the industry, they're saying, hey, this is not how we do business.
Yeah.
We need to make, the more we can make, the better. And it's like, cool, we can still make $100,000. I don't need to make $150,000. Like that's fine. It's still a good win if they can still walk away with something, and they're, a lot of it is like their dignity too. Like people just having a way out, like they found a way out, Yeah. So that was a big part of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people in business would say, hey, I'm not in this to make a buck necessarily, right? But they're in a for-profit enterprise. Sure. Like they're actually trying to earn a living and make margin. And, but a quick plug for you is it's part of your story. Like you actually put your money where your mouth is, I guess, kind of, right? You're in it to make a profit and to get a good deal, but you're not in it to take advantage of people.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And this is still the same thing now. It's nice that, and then getting my license, that was a big part of it. One, I like the process of being able to like the big dreamer, right? The person who's downsizing because they've already lived their wonderful life in this big home, or the first time home buyer, right? Or you have the people who are getting their upgrade, right? Like there's always like a big vision attached to it. And you're like, oh, I get to take place in that. But now also as an investor, it's like, cool, I can buy your house cash, right? We can make a deal for a fixer-upper or whatnot. But if it doesn't make sense, well, I can list your home as well, and it's still, we can present more. We had just another tool in the belt, essentially.
For sure. That's awesome. Yeah. Fantastic. So so you kind of got into real estate. You didn't grow up thinking you wanted to be a real estate investor?
No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, I was always arts and music.
Yeah.
I went to, actually, it's funny, in high school, I said I was going to be an artist. I was doing art, all the time in school.
Yeah.
And then my art teachers were like, we can get you scholarships. You should do art. But I wanted to do music. For whatever reason, I wanted to be in a studio.
Okay.
So like on these boards and stuff was like,
like
that seems so cool. So I spent a ton of money going to audio engineering school, and I did that for a little while, but that industry was rough.
Okay.
So I was like, this is not for me. I need to get out of this. And then I ended up getting into the movie industry doing Photoshop because all my friends were doing art stuff. So I already knew how to do that stuff. And that was kind of like my entry into the design side of stuff and getting into that. And I was just kind of kept doing that.
That's cool. Well, your style has continued on. You're a good looking dude and you got a nice style for sure. So very admirable.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
It's cool. So anyway, you found yourself into real estate kind of accidentally maybe, right?
Kind of. I think just stumbling upon some podcasts, a couple of different books.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh, I was always, and then the other thing, I was always trying to start businesses as a kid too. Okay. So it was like, okay, like I was entrepreneur as a kid. So I wanted, like, how do I make money? I don't want to just work for people and get,
trade your time for money. You'd rather actually go build a business.
So I was like, how do I do that? And then real estate is just probably one of the best drivers for that. Like I was like, this is awesome. This is where it's at.
So it's a passion for you, and maybe it wasn't when you were a kid necessarily. You didn't grow up wanting to be in real estate, but it became a passion, and then you jumped off the deep end and did it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Is there more to that story? Like, was that a scary transition to leave, more stable income behind, or?
I mean, yeah, definitely leaving California. That was, I was been in the industry for design and marketing for 15 plus years. So like that was what I did. And then leaving the flipping and investing side of stuff. Well, everyone I knew, my sphere of influence was all in California.
Yeah.
So coming out here was like a wash, starting over. So there was always that for sure. But I think we felt, both my wife and I, convicted that this is what we needed to do.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, there was comfort in that. I think that ultimately that's what it came down to. We're like, look, there's 100% conviction. It's very clear that this is what we're supposed to do. God's going to make a way.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
Step of faith.
Yep. And we're still in the thick of it.
Sure.
It's one of those things. It's constant, but it's good.
Yeah, you haven't been doing this forever by any means, right?
No.
But taking great care of people to the best of your ability, right? I know one of the ways that you continue your artistic skills, right, is a lot of the way you guys go to market, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, if I'm not mistaken, we in a roundabout way got connected through probably social media.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
For sure. Yeah.
And the funny thing is Amy built a social media channel for me that I have very little to do with, and started interacting as me. And I think probably met Denise that way.
Yep.
And then here we are, it comes full circle.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, and then definitely who you surround yourself with matters, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how your experience maybe in marketing and creativity and design has kind of translated and is part of your business now.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, really, I think marketing comes down to, it's a psychological and emotional grab. Right?
Yeah.
So, and anything and everything in the transaction is very emotional. People are emotional in their transactions. So learning how to market stuff to create a feeling, so like, even like with their social media stuff, it's like our ideal client, what are they probably feeling at this moment? And how can I tap into that? So that's kind of, I think, the thing that we take from marketing and bring it into our socials for sure.
So authenticism, is that the right word? Being authentic?
Yeah, definitely being an authentic self.
I think I just created a word.
Self. Yeah.
There we go.
But yeah, for sure, there's that. It's just, and you're putting yourself out there. That we're marketing ourselves at the end of the day, who we are, how we carry ourselves. And I like to have fun. So you're going to see on my page, I'm going to be a goof, just enjoying,
we've seen it.
Yeah.
We've seen it and we like it.
Yeah. You might catch me wearing a wig and a cowboy hat.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's double click on that for just a second, because how long does it take to plan something like that? Or is this
honestly, a lot of it's just like the best stuff is always like, let's do it right now because this is funny. And you just pull out the camera and just make it. And
by let's, who are you talking about?
I sucker my wife into
you and your wife
filming me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is she ever on camera with you?
She is. If you scroll through our stuff, she's the Karen in my cowboy videos typically.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
She's a goof too. She likes to have fun. So that works out. But yeah, we'll have like a silly idea and we're like, let's just do it now.
Nice. Yeah. Would you consider her to be like a business partner of yours?
Yes, but I guess it hasn't really been discussed that way, but I mean, yeah, we're on the same page. So she backs me 100%, which has been awesome. I couldn't be doing what I do without her,
Nice.
So yeah.
So you're having fun doing it.
For sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
If you were going to give me advice, because I'm not very good at social media, to be totally honest, right? If I was going to go try to show up on camera on social media specifically, what advice would you give me about just being yourself? Like how do you go about that?
I know. I feel like I've overcomplicated that myself, trying to figure that out. And at the end of the day, it's just be you. But I know once we start filming ourselves, it's like, how do I have to, you start seeing yourself like, wait, do I want to be seen that way? But just being yourself without worrying about what anyone's going to say.
It's good.
Because trolls that's a real thing.
Are you guys, are you visible enough and your contents get enough eyeballs on it that you actually have specific trolls? You guys are dealing with that?
Are the fun part about it.
Are they?
They somehow the woodworks. I had one the other day and I didn't get it until later on the night. I read it in the morning because I just like, oh, not a big deal. But he said, Just for Man is on big here. And I was like, Just for Man is on big here. What does this person even mean? Kept scrolling and I was like, oh, Just for Men. Isn't that like a hair dyeing product for men. And I was like, dude, he's commenting on the gray.
Silver fox.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, he's a little jealous probably. I was like, wait till you get older. Your wife's she's probably going to love it. So he'll get there at some point, I'm sure. He was a younger dude. So, but yeah, the trolls are awesome. Typically they'll come out and it's always, they call them the keyboard warriors. They got the, behind the screen, they're fearless, but I've never encountered anybody in person that's like that vicious, so that's good. Typically,
hide behind the keyboard and the mouse and the monitor and all the things. Mm-hmm. Never have that kind of boldness when they're in person.
Yeah. A lot of the go back to California, or we're full is another one we get. We're full here. Like, okay.
Yeah, I've seen that one for sure.
I had one the other day. What was it? It was, California called, they want you back. I said, that was probably a scam likely. Wrong number, scam likely. Like that wasn't, it wasn't for me.
Potential spam is what it said.
Yeah, we're staying. That's exactly what it came up as. I'm like, I'm not going nowhere, buddy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, but the trolls are real.
Cool. All right, kind of back to client relationships. So you've already said it. You're 100% all about relationships and being authentic, right? Do you have any stories that stick out about a client experience recently or maybe?
Yeah, I think something common, and I pride myself in this and I really enjoy it because it's really the goal. Reviews are like, hey, we found Rene, and then like, but now he wasn't just our agent. Now, like, he's kind of like a friend, or, like he's family now, or, that's like, and that's what I want. I want you to feel like I'm working with a family member who really cares for me, is listening to what I want and my wants and desires, and is going to guide me with that type of nurturing. Right.
Yeah.
So there's always that, I know. And then I didn't know getting into real estate that it was going to be, that I'm going to be like a psychiatrist,
a housing counselor,
and all the things.
Yeah.
I'm like, I knew I'd be like a declutter, like advisor, and design advisor, which I was game for that because I'm all for that stuff. But definitely didn't know it'd be like a counselor because it's very emotional and people are just wild in the midst of that.
Yeah, when I got into this business as well, I wanted a more personal career. I wanted something that actually had more of an impact in people's lives, and for better or for worse, man, we found it.
Yeah.
People are very vulnerable when they're in escrow.
Yeah. And they want to take it out on you, not knowing, that at the end of the day afterwards, they're like, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, it's okay. I know.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. Just having thick skin and really not taking anything personal has been key.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's awesome. Let's maybe kind of shift towards the future and goals for yourself, your personal life, like where your business specifically. Where do you see this going? Where do you want this to go? Like what, if somebody said, hey, fast forward 5 years.
Yeah.
What does your business look like? What's your personal life look like?
It's funny. I have a friend who's always like, what's your 5-year goal? What's your 5-year goal? And for the last 10 years, I've always been about these, like creating a vision, right? And saying, hey, look, this is what I want. But I've learned that like, as much vision as you cast and as much as your goals, like at the end of the day, like, yes, we should have things we're working towards, but stuff always changes. I can't remember the last thing that actually went the way I thought it was going to go. Like, honestly, like, and even in the midst of like, okay, like there's, moving out here. Okay. Yeah. We did pack up. We did say we're going to move and we're here.
Yeah.
But the way it all unfolded isn't exactly how I thought it was going to unfold or how I planned it to be.
Right.
So like, I do have a vision for the future is just to continue serving people well. Really what it comes down to, and creating relationships that the people feel like family, and and what does family do? At least good family. They're going to refer you back to more people.
Yeah.
So just creating relationships after the transaction is done.
Yep.
To where it's like, hey, I need help with X, Y, and Z. It has nothing to do with real estate. I'm going to call Rene because he's going to be willing to do that.
I mean, that's the whole reason that this podcast exists, right? Is to highlight that. We're looking we want to personally be able to provide value for our past customers once the deal closes, right? Rather than just wiping your forehead and saying, thank God that one's done and move on to the next, right?
Yeah. I had a client, they closed on a home in Star, and when we were walking the property, he's like, this is going to be a nightmare. I'm not going to know how to turn water on come time for water, because we bought in the thick of the winter. And, he was just venting along, and I'm just taking mental notes. soon as springtime came, I had already called the HOA and figured out all his water situation. I said, hey, look, by the way, I'm going to show up today at such time, show you where the water is at. And he's like, wait, you remember that? I'm like, yeah, dude, I don't want you stressing about your water situation. Like, I got you, you know?
Awesome.
So just stuff like that. Like, really want to be able to serve them well, even after, we don't have to do that.
No, you don't.
His house he's done.
Right.
I could send him cookies a couple times a year.
Sure.
And he's still going to remember me. And I served him well through the transaction.
Yeah.
And I would hope well enough for him to refer me or think about me. And, I'll keep making my touches.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just going above and beyond and kind of being there for people that's my goal, is to learn how to do that even better. Really. It's just to get better at serving people after the transaction's closed.
That's awesome. I mean, you were in a unique position to be able to kind of be a fly on the wall as he was, being frustrated about whatever that was. And to have the follow through, to, note that down and then to actually go do something about it months later is a massive testimony to who you are and kind of the way that you want to care for people. So it's awesome.
Yeah. One of my first transactions was from a gentleman I met at an open house. And, he came by checking out this house and it wasn't going to be the house for them. Right. And then I sent him a list and he's like, oh, well, we're not really ready. I said, no worries. But he shared, like during the open house, he shared a lot about his life.
Yeah.
So in my head, I'm like, oh, you have X kids and oh, you're going through X, Y, and Z and all the things. Right. So I just kept tabs of this stuff. So throughout the year, I would just touch base with him and check in. How's so-and-so and how's this going? And had nothing to do with real estate. Yeah. Right. Just making a connection. Cause I wanted to know, cause we had this great conversation at the open house and I'm just like, I want to know how this guy's doing. Yeah. Dude, a year later, fast forward a whole year and he's like, hey, I need to buy this house. Can you help me? I'm like, of course, let's do it.
It was very natural at that point because you built a relationship with him. Yeah.
And it just worked out. And he's been a great client and he's going to buy multiple homes. It's just one of those things like, it's awesome.
Super rad.
Just seeing people for people.
That's cool. Someone asked me the other day, and I think it's kind of a similar question I just already asked you, but I'll just plug it. It was Wally. Wally asked me the other day, he's like, hey, looking back at the last 5 to 7 years, have you accomplished the things that you intended to accomplish? And I was like, huh. And it triggered for me a book that I read and I'll recommend it to you. I maybe have recommended it to you before. It's called The Gap and the Gain. Have you heard of that one?
Never heard of it.
One of the things that I wish somebody would do, and there's a reason I'm going to say this, would be to write like a biblical commentary or a biblical response on a really good business book, because there's tons of great business books out there, right? And oftentimes they have really good advice, and oftentimes they might parallel scripture really, really well, but there might be some sort of like self-helpy nuance in there that I'd say, well,
I can't really do that on my own, ultimately. Even if you think you can, you really can't.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's funny is I was saying the other day, I was like, dang it, I wish somebody would do that. And a guy that I was talking to at the time was like, why don't you just ask ChatGPT to do it for you? And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. So I just hopped in there and I said, hey, write me a biblical response to the book, The Gap and the Gain. And it kind of
5 seconds later.
Yeah. And it was actually super helpful, but it reminded me why I liked the book in the first place, which is basically, if you measure backwards, I think you can always find progress. You can always find joy. You can always find satisfaction. You can always find accomplishment. Yeah. And I didn't even think about it at the time. I was put on the spot by this question, so I don't have time to even prep. But he asked, are you satisfied? Are you happy with where you've come over the last handful of years? And I was like, well, if I look backwards, yeah. And that's the gain, right? That's looking, that's the whole book. That's the whole concept of the book. You look backwards and measure your progress from where you've come. And there's probably oftentimes room there to celebrate, right?
For sure. Yeah.
But in business and in life, we're often so forward focused.
Face down in the ground, just away.
Running. And we have this goal and we achieve it, and then we forget to celebrate it. And then what happens? Yeah. The goalpost advances down the field further. Right. The goal changes. All of a sudden, never satisfied at all. And so in the book, they call that the gap, right?
I like that.
But anyhow, I would ask you the same question because we just teased it. So through that mindset or through that lens, how are you feeling about your journey over the past, call it 5 to 7 years?
I'd say satisfied for sure.
That's cool.
But going back to what you're saying, it's a lot of the time you don't stop to do that. So it's really hard you have to have these moments of sitting back and saying, look, actually I'm doing pretty well and I'm pretty grateful for where I'm at, because it kind of surpasses really a lot of times, it changes, but it's better than what I expected.
Yeah. I think we look at our kids through that lens too. And it actually helps us as parents.
Yeah.
Rather than, dang it, when are you ever going to get to the maturity level or the, the neatness level or the care about grades level or whatever it is. And the reality is if we can measure backwards, it's like, oh, you've come a long way.
Yeah. I just thinking about that. I would enjoy more looking back than thinking 5 years from now. So I dig that. I dig that perspective. That's really cool.
So without shifting and making it about a 5-year plan, I am curious to know what goals do you have for your business?
Yeah. So right now I partnered with my cousin, Denise Ferrari. She's growing her team.
She's rad.
She's super awesome. Yeah. So she's been growing her team.
We're going to try to get her on the podcast as well.
I'm sure she'll be here soon.
Yeah.
Just continue to truck along with her, kind of make that, what she wants it to be. And for me, really, just selling real estate and just making the connections. I just want to continue growing that. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And then my kids, we homeschool our kids. So we're, just growing. That's like a full-time job in and of itself.
Yeah. That's inspirational for a lot of people. I think there might be listeners on this someday, somehow, right? If this ever builds an audience that might hear that and be like, oh, he homeschools his kids.
Yeah.
That's cool. Tell me more.
Kudos to my wife. She does a lot of the schooling, but real life stuff is constant. They're with us, right? So
is that her preference, your preference, your together preference?
Initially, it was her.
Okay.
Yeah. Initially, she was like, hey, we should consider doing this. And then she kind of presented the reasons why. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Let's look into that. And we did that prior to coming out here. But my son was in a private school, preschool, pre-K and then pre-K, and then right before kindergarten.
Yeah.
But they did like an evaluation and they were like, hey, he's super logical. He's great at this. They went down a list of all the things he was great about, but they were like, emotionally, I think he's not really where he needs to be to go to kindergarten. We should probably hold him back. And I was like, so you're saying academically he's above average, but emotionally you're talking about a 4-year-old might not be ready to go to, he might not be able to sit still, or he's going to, he might
Welcome
be
to boys.
too mad. I'm like, he's a boy. You're just trying to not let him be a boy. Like that's a problem.
Yeah.
So we saw that, and that was like the red flag first. And we're like, oh, and then, so we were just like, let's look into this. What does this look like? And then who knows your kids best than yourself, right? Like how they learn, how they respond to things.
Yeah.
And each of them are so different. So you get them in a classroom and you're like, the teacher's great at maybe 1 or 2 of the learning ways of teaching. And it's like, well, now my kid's getting left behind, but he's actually a freaking really smart kid.
Yeah.
So that was kind of our thing. We didn't want to deal with that. So we said, let's figure this out and do it.
I would say it's a massively unselfish thing. I think it's a huge servant
Definitely not
giving thing. We've kicked around the idea for years and years. We say we want to evaluate school every single year. We've never truly taken in a different approach super seriously. Now, my wife doesn't feel conviction that we should do it necessarily.
Yeah.
We would be willing if we felt like there's a red flag that we needed to do it. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. If your kids, I feel like if your kids are thriving where they're at.
Yeah. Thriving's an interesting word.
If they're doing good enough, I don't know, a little bit above good enough. I don't know. But if there's not a big problem, if there's not a big red flag, then, it's not necessarily for everybody.
Yeah.
We do source out like his reading. He was just not wanting to learn from mom. When it came to that for whatever reason, he was just like,
resistant.
I don't want it. So we have a tutor who meets with them every day for like 30 minutes on Zoom.
Yeah.
And he's been in just a matter of a month, like he's killing it. He's doing so much better. So
that's awesome.
I think just, puts you in a position too, where you have to just kind of be flexible for change.
Yeah.
And, we were kind of just had to make a pivot. because it wasn't working out, but it's cool.
That's good. Yeah. I think the idea of, I think a lot of parents like the freedom that comes from kids being at school all day long. And it may not be, this isn't a podcast about whether education system's good or not, but that may not be the best for most, if not all kids, turns out, right?
Yeah.
But it's fantastic when
and for us, it's opposite. We like the freedom of being able to go on a vacation and still be able to do school in the middle of whenever kids are normally in school.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And we tease our kids if they're acting up. We said, hey, we're going to put you in regular school.
Yeah.
And my daughter's like, no. I want to be able to go with you to do, all the regular things during the week. And I think I saw a video the other day, this little girl, her mom homeschool, she's walking, she's got a little latte in her hand. The girl has a little hot cocoa or whatever from Starbucks. And mom's like, I'm going to put you in regular school. And she's like, oh no, mom, I wouldn't be able to be having my cocoa with you right now. And the kids in the background in the school, I'm just like, oh, probably not the best reason to not be in school, but it's funny.
So good though. That's awesome. Yeah. But so if you weren't doing real estate, what do you think that you would be doing for a career at this point?
Oh.
Or if you weren't living in Idaho, where do you,
wasn't living
you think
in Idaho,
you'd be in Iowa?
I would still be doing marketing, graphic design, flipping homes in California.
You think so?
Yeah. And probably just flipping homes at this point. I would have just been doing that full time.
Got it.
Yeah. That's probably what I would have been doing.
Still trying to do that as well as your standard real estate business as opportunities present, or are you actively looking for those or?
Actively looking. Yeah. Okay. Actively looking. I'm not cold calling anymore, but if opportunities open up, there's always money, resources, people looking to invest money. So
that's awesome.
Still doing that. Yeah.
Super cool. Anything, so when we invited you onto this, was there anything that kind of immediately came to mind that, I want to make sure I shared that?
Not necessarily, but just the name alone, more than a mortgage.
Yeah.
Like opened up this everything. I feel like our conversation has kind of been geared towards that. Yeah. Right. Because it is more than a mortgage. It's great.
Yeah, that's our goal.
But I think just that idea was like, what are all the cool things we could talk about that don't have anything to do with that? But it's just the connections we get to make with people. Yeah. It's funny. When you were doing the mastermind, there was a question that you asked, and it's one that I had heard before, but it was phrased differently. And it was something one of my mentors asked me years ago, and it's always stuck with me. But when you said it, I was like, oh, it's so good, because it's a great question to always ask ourselves. And it was, how would you show up on a daily basis if you didn't need to show up for money? Right.
Yep.
And like, what are your interactions with people going to be on a daily basis if you don't have commission breath, essentially, right? Like, hey, how you doing? I really want to know how you're doing. You need to sell a home? No, it's, hey, how you doing? That's it. I really want to just know how you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a good question to wake up to, almost on a daily if you can, right? Like, how am I going to show up today if I don't need a dime from anybody?
Gosh dang. I haven't even thought about that probably since that TVRE, that mastermind group we had. So good. Thanks for reminding me of that.
Yeah. And just the other day I was bummed. There was at my rental, I was doing some gravel, and I'm like, I got so much to do. I don't want to do this gravel. I should probably just have someone come do it. I'm like, no, but just take the time to do it. The kids were there. They were helping. It was kind of like a opportunity to show the kids how to do something. And I'm like, it's going slower because they're helping, right? But I was just out there, and I'm like, cool. But being outside made it so that any neighbor that walked by, I was able to have a conversation. And then there was one neighbor that ended up coming by and was like, hey man, like started asking questions about the rental. And long story short, he wants to buy a house. He needs help and doing the stuff. And it's just like, well, if I wouldn't have been just interested in stopping to talk to the guy and seeing how he was doing, that conversation wouldn't have came up.
Yeah.
Cause I didn't knock on his door and say, hey, you looking to sell a home? Or it's just authentic life, everyday stuff that you're involved in. And here goes a transaction coming out of it.
Yep. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to remember that. Hopefully Amy wrote that down too for us. I'm sure she did. Yeah. It's probably
Amy.
That's probably going to be a new standard question for this going forward. Like, hey, how would you show up if you knew you didn't need to get a dime out of it?
Yeah. So finding joy in the mundane, right? On the daily task.
Yeah.
Showing up well and showing up with joy and ready to just have a good time every day, even though things get super chaotic.
Dude, love it.
Yeah.
Such a fun conversation. I did just think of something that we do not have time to discuss. So maybe we should book a session too at some point. Yeah. But I recommended a book to you a few weeks back. I don't know if this is what triggered it, but Faith Driven Entrepreneur.
You did. I haven't gone to it, but yes, you did.
Would love to hear your thoughts on that. I just finished it this morning, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And then that started a little bit of a text back and forth,
Right.
I think. A bigger question that a lot of us that are Christians have asked, like, there's a weird tension in entrepreneur land, in folks that are in business for profit.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe a teaser for another
that's
episode.
A great one. And it's funny that you brought it up, because I do remember when you mentioned that book, and I was like, we need to talk about that. And we didn't. So we'll have to do it again.
Yeah. Dude, now that you just shared your story with all of us, I think you're going to have some people that are interested in getting in touch with you and may want to even work with you. So what's the best way for folks to get in touch with you?
So Rene.Ferrari realestate@gmail.com or Cornejo.realestate on Instagram. It's probably the best place, because you can just slide into my DMs and we can start chatting it up.
Go check out his awesome content on Instagram for sure. You'll probably get hooked that way as well. So cool.
Yes.
Thanks, man. Anyway, I really appreciate you being here. Thanks so much for sharing the story with me. And I really enjoyed getting to hear that. A lot of it I'd never heard before. So hopefully our guests enjoy it as well. And hopefully your people specifically are blessed by getting to know you better. And ideally what that will mean is they'll point more people to you, right? So you can be a blessing to them as well. So
love it.
Awesome.
Cool deal.
Thanks for being here today. I appreciate it. Well, Rene is a fantastic dude. As we all just heard, his story is unique. So cool how he found his way into real estate. And also what a fantastic reminder he had for me about what it would be like to show up every single day, looking through that lens, if money was not really required, not the object, right? If you weren't trying to close a deal. So Rene's an awesome guy that puts his faith absolutely first, and then his family. You heard the way that he's even willing to give of himself from a homeschooling standpoint to, even maybe shovel and gravel when it probably wasn't necessarily the best use of his time, but opportunity knocks sometimes when we least expect it. So Rene is a guy that's going to take amazing care of you. If you're interested in getting in touch with him, we cannot recommend him highly enough. We're so thankful that he was part of our show today. And Rene, thanks a lot, man. We really, really appreciate you.